They're lying to you. All the early test screening reactions for the are lying to you straight to your face, because we just got a whole bunch of insane brand new details about these public test screenings that clear the air on everyone's true feelings towards this film. And honestly, it sounds fantastic. And either way, me and you know what we gotta do. We gotta talk about it. First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. But for real, let's start off with this. We got to start off with laying the foundation. Because the other day we learned that Marvel Studios held public test screenings for Fantastic Four First Steps in surprising fashion. And we got a pretty good idea on how everyone feels towards this movie, what they like, what they didn't like, all in a spoiler-free manner. And in case you're unfamiliar with what a public test screening is essentially what it sounds like. It's one of a few test screening tactics that studios have used to get a sense for how audiences feel about their upcoming film. But there are two different versions of a test screening. One, a public test screening, which is just bringing in a bunch of random people from the public, general audience members, go to a screening where they sit down and watch most likely an unfinished version of the movie. And at the end of the screening, they fill out a survey with their thoughts on the movie, what they liked, what they didn't like, and they give it a rating based on all of that, very similarly to Cinema Score. And the other option is internal test screenings, where they just screen it to people in the company. But a lot of times you're gonna get people who are gonna love the product regardless because they're super fans, so those aren't really super valuable. But a public test screening is trying to get the most diverse group of people into a room together to see what the general consensus and feelings towards this film are. And for the most part, throughout their history, Marvel Studios has never really done a public test screening before. I mean, they've definitely had many internal test screenings with all the dailies, of course. But I think the only other recent movie that had public test screenings was Deadpool and Wolverine. And also, they don't really screen their movies to the public because of spoilers. But we're in a big 2025 now, and after the box office disasters that Quantumania and the Marvels were, both of which did not have public test screenings, and along with shifting their focus onto quality over quantity, it looks like Marvel is starting to do those public test screenings again. Which now, finally, leads us to what one person who was at this public test screening for Fantastic Four felt about the movie. And again, this is just a general sense on their feelings towards the movie. It doesn't go into any specific plot details or plot points. They just highlight what they liked, what they didn't like, and their overall score for the movie that they saw. And yes, this was verified. I've made multiple videos on it. I actually know some people that went to this screening. But without further ado, let's just get into what they thought about Fantastic Four. Starting off with the shortcomings, the Fantastic Four's family dynamics are underdeveloped due to the movie's fast-paced events. Ben Grimm's The Thing characterization feels shallow. Reed Richards' characterization is solid, but his powers are portrayed unimaginatively. But that leads us to the strengths. One thing they noted is that there was high-quality production overall. Cinematography, score, and the performances were all praised. Sue Storm and Johnny Storm, they're well-developed with both characterization and powers effectively shown. And the movie's pacing is intense, but well-controlled. And this specific person's overall impression is a rating of a 7 out of 10. Enjoyable, though the reviewer has high expectations as a hardcore Fantastic Four fan. But they do believe it's better than Thunderbolts, but also they generally did not like Thunderbolts as much as most people. Take that how you will. And allegedly, after that test screening, most of the audience members described the movie as mid, with a lot of people trying to spin it in a very negative direction, with a bunch of insiders and scoopers allegedly saying that people shouted mid when it ended. Like, allegedly, someone went to a public test screening knowing that they were watching a movie that was being tested and willingly shouted mid when it ended, with Kevin Feige and Matt Shakman in attendance not looking too happy about hearing that. Yeah, that's some bullshit. And thankfully, the person that was at this test screening had to set the record straight and come back out to clarify everything that happened in the screening. And as a matter of fact, most people who watched this movie didn't even think it was mid. And for the most part, everyone in attendance actually scored Fantastic Four First Steps as quote-unquote excellent. Man, they missed the opportunity to do the funniest things ever and have it called fantastic. And the person who shared their initial reaction to the Fantastic Four test screening felt like they were responsible for some subsequent reactions. They said they've been seeing a lot of reporting on anecdotes and facts that they recognize as their own, and they wanted to debunk some of the misinterpretations that they have heard. First things first, they said no one screamed mid in the audience. There was a guy next to them sighing and flapping his hands around. When the movie was over, they asked this person their opinion, and they said it was mid. They then told this story on Discord right after they had left, with certain insiders having blown this story out of proportion, saying that some lunatic screamed mid in the theater. They can confirm that this is 1000% untrue. The second big thing this person revealed, and like I said before, although the people next to them may not have liked it, there was an employee asking around random people for their reaction, and they heard a lot of excellence, which was the highest rating on the survey. The third thing this person wanted to clear up is that yes, while the film is fast-paced, it's not a mess. The fourth point was them clarifying their feelings towards the movie by saying that they admit that they might not have been 100% positive on the film, but it is partially because they are a hardcore Fantastic Four fan. And they were extremely bothered by the fact that Reed didn't turn into any crazy shapes, and they were bothered that the Thing didn't have his Brooklyn accent, which they acknowledged that the general audience will not really care about these things. Yeah, I don't know about you, but after hearing that, I need Fantastic Four First Steps more than I need air. Y'all got any more of that Fantastic Four First Steps? I need the And finally, their fifth and final point was probably their biggest criticism towards this film. They felt like there was a lack of character development for the four, and they called it a serious concern, stating that the characters go through no growth. But they do admit that their personalities and dynamics with each other are on point. They just don't apparently go through any meaningful changes. And I'm gonna stop that person right there because I haven't seen a movie, they have. But I don't know about you. I feel like having a child added to a fourth member of a superhero team feels like some type of change. It also probably doesn't help that they already are the Fantastic Four when we watch this movie, which has been confirmed by Matt Shakman, Kevin Feige. So maybe this person was just missing the origin bits, and that's why they felt like there was no character development. But again, I'm gonna watch this movie myself and form my own damn opinion. But another thing that gives me a lot of confidence is in this interview with Empire Magazine that Matt Shakman gave. He said that he fell in love with the Fantastic Four when he was a kid growing up in Ventura, California. Encountering a family of superheroes that felt so familiar blew his mind. The humor, the heart, the sniping and griping, the messiness. At the same time, he was taken by the optimism and wonder of their world. With their roots in the 60s space race, the Fantastic Four have always been about exploration. Whether it is to the cosmos or the negative zone or deep into the human mind. Reed, Sue, Ben, and Johnny may have incredible powers, but they are a family first. Scientists and explorers second, and superheroes only when absolutely necessary. Every Marvel filmmaker attempts to build on what has come before in publishing while simultaneously reinventing the characters for the current moment. The same is true with comic creators. What Lee and Kirby launched in the 60s changed Marvel forever. Their bold gamble to center a realistic family turned into the biggest hit of the Silver Age. Every artist and writers from that moment has attempted to build on that legacy while finding something in the characters that made them sparkle new. And in preparing to direct Fantastic Four, he dived into 60 plus years of comics history. Marvel's first family has been continuously cared for by the best and brightest the company had to offer. But none of them shine brighter than Jonathan Hickman. The humor and heart he loved as a kid, it's there and better than ever. The messy family dynamics made even more interesting as Val and Franklin take center stage. And that sense of optimism and wonder, he doesn't think the Fantastic Four have been quite as fantastic as they are in the pages of this book. And as they developed the script for the film, Matt Shakman returned again and again to this epic run, thrilled by brain-bending innovations like the Council of Reeds, and riveted by heroic standoffs against the likes of Annihilus. But it was Hickman's deep insight into the specific family dynamics of the Fantastic Four that affected Matt Shakman the most. His Reed Richards is part Steve Jobs and part Oppenheimer. I love that. Always on the edge of saving the world or destroying it. Jonathan Hickman wasn't afraid to run right at Mr. Fantastic's weaknesses, believing that he can and should do it all on his own. Reed is determined to solve everything, but he learns that the cost of solving everything is everything. Ultimate knowledge risks ultimate sacrifice, the loss of his family. And I'm going to stop the quote right there to just say, this motherfucker understands it. That is literally that is perfect explanation for the Reed Richards character. But let's go ahead and move on to what he said about Sue because it's just as good. Sue has come a long way from the invisible girl of the early 60s. In those pages, she is part United States Secretary General and part Field Marshal, where she backs up diplomacy with force, but only when necessary. Hickman's Sue may be the most powerful member of the four. She's the glue that holds the world together, while Reed experiments in a lab with things that could destroy it. She brokers deals as the world's finest diplomat, ending up as the Queen of the Sea. In one of his favorite Fantastic Four moments, she declares to Namor, "I am a queen that bows before no king." Damn right. Matt Shakman is fucking cooking. But he's not done because he goes on to explain what makes their marriage the best in comics history, in his opinion, by saying, how do these two very different people make up the greatest marriage in comics history? We see page after page that the secret is their unique balance of heart and mind. Before Jerry Maguire, the movie, these two completed each other. Sue and Reed are relatable not just as partners, but also as parents. We understand their anxiety. Constantly worried about their children, Val and Franklin, just as most of us are about our children's future. They cherish the family intimacy of scenes in the Baxter building and never doubt that these parents love their children and would do anything to protect their family, stating that he knows that Johnny and Ben would do the same. And as we know that, as superheroes, they will fight just as hard to protect not just their family, but our world. And Matt Shakman goes on to say, having absorbed 6 decades of Fantastic Four publishing, many of Hickman's magical moments and unique character dynamics stuck with me. And they made it into our film in smart and large ways. From Sue as a diplomat to Reed trying to solve everything, even at the risk of imperiling his family. Johnny's need to be taken seriously. Ben's gentle nature, forever at odds with his appearance. The Future Foundation. The Bridge. The mystery of children and the anxiety we have as parents about their future. Hickman is a poet of both the everyday and the extraordinary. His work beats with a heart as big as Sue Storm's, rendering an emotional journey that culminates in a scene that makes me tear up every time I read it. I won't ruin it just for the unks. His writing is thrilling, thought-provoking, and tender, and like the characters he writes about, fantastic. Matt Shakman, I say this with all due respect, but say that again. but legit, everything that you just said so everyone in the back can hear it, because that is a Fantastic Four. Oh my God. Hey, but fuck what all those people are talking about in those test screenings. I don't care. I'm going to form my own opinion just like I always do. I don't care about anyone else's opinion but my own. Because film is an art form, and art affects us all in different ways. That's why we all have different favorite movies, different taste in film. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and when I behold my eyes upon Fantastic Four First Steps, I'm going to give my honest, in-depth review on it, and I hope you all are there with me too. But either way, let me know what you think about this news down in the comments below, and as always, like and follow for more.